A state which regards Greta Thunberg and other peace activists as mortal threats because they're trying to help people who are being deliberately starved to death is a state which is, in the end, going to lose. The Israeli military has stormed and hijacked the Madeleine, of course. It's a UK-flagged humanitarian ship which was carrying aid for the starved, maimed, homeless, displaced, traumatised, bereaved people of Gaza. They kidnapped the crew in international waters, defying international law, as is Israel's wont. The Madeleine was a ship launched by the Freedom Flotilla Coalition that was launched itself in 2010 because, as we'll discuss, Gaza has been besieged for a very, very long time. And the 12-strong crew included fellow activists from Brazil, France, Turkey, Spain, the Netherlands. Two of those detained are journalists. One is a French-Palestinian member of the European Parliament. All of the crew recorded videos in anticipation of their arrest. Let's hear what Greta Thunberg had to say.
My name is Greta Thunberg and I am from Sweden. If you see this video, we have been intercepted and kidnapped in international waters by the Israeli occupational forces or forces that support Israel. I urge all my friends, family and comrades to put pressure on the Swedish government to release me and the others as soon as possible.
Now, we know it had been intercepted by Israeli vessels and quadcopter drones. These quadcopters, it should be noted, have slaughtered so many Palestinian civilians, including children. Their communications were jammed to begin with.
Right now, they're jamming our comms. They are saying random stuff just to jam our communication. They are doing this so that we cannot get help.
Here was the moment when the boat came under attack from Israeli forces, which was obviously a very stressful moment for the crew.
Okay, we are masking our face right now. We have quadcopters right above our heads, the most dangerous ones, and they are, I don't know what this is. I'm so sorry. We don't see anyone coming. We don't know what this is, if this is paint or some chemical. No idea, but please sound the alarm. They did say that they want to intercept us in a very calm way, but this is not what's happening. There is another war crime about to happen. We will keep you updated. Please put pressure on the government. Tell them that we are here because they are aiding and abetting this genocide. They are upholding a illegal blockade. They're using starvation as a weapon of war. This cannot go on. We cannot live in a future like this. You need to do everything in your power. Use your bodies, use your voices. Amplify the voice of Palestinians. And do tell them that we are here because they're not doing their jobs.
We can hear Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur for the Palestinian territories, who witnessed what was happening because she was online communicating with the crew.
Quite shocking because I've been on the phone with the captain for on and off for over the period of 2 hours. So I was talking to them to try to check how they were doing when 5 speedboats encircled the boat. So this is when the alarm was given. And they asked me to be on call and to record everything because, of course, everything could go wrong. And then things seemed to be quiet till 2 quadcopters reached the boat. In the beginning, the team thought that they were drones, simple drones. Then when they identified that they were quadcopters, so the machines that can shoot and kill, they went undercover and they didn't move since. And after about 30 minutes, I received another call. They had been intercepted. The soldiers were getting on the boat. I heard the crew being ordered to stay calm, just to keep their hands up. And I was talking to the captain when the line was cut. So I think they are now the Madeleine has been taken, and they were probably being taken to Ashdod.
Israel has said it will deport them, but after it has made them watch a video of atrocities committed by Hamas on 7 October. The idea seems to be there that making them watch a snuff video will convince them that Palestinians should actually be exterminated after all. Look, I watched that video. I watched the IDF video of the atrocities of 7 October, the contents of which, by the way, are largely in the public domain. as you probably have noticed, it didn't stop me from being a passionate opponent of Israel committing every single war crime under the sun. Israel seems to think that this is the only time a state has unleashed a genocide using atrocities committed by an armed group drawn from the ethnic group which is then suffering the genocide. I mean, the Rwandan genocide and Srebrenica are two genocides in my lifetime which were justified using war crimes committed by the other. Perhaps they think that humane people watch war crimes and think, do you know what? This makes me want to commit far more extreme, far more lethal, far more devastating war crimes than those atrocities I've just watched. But you see, that isn't how humane people behave, as Israel will discover. Now, the Israeli Foreign Ministry issued a statement, and well, they have quite some fun. They describe this as a selfie yacht of the celebrities. Well, Israel knows all about selfies, given the propensity of its soldiers to take laughing, smiling, joking selfies as they commit war crimes and joke around with the pilfered belongings of Palestinians they've murdered or maimed or displaced, or some of the combination of that, from women's underwear to children's toys. They then made claims, the Foreign Ministry, about Israel delivering aid to the people of Palestine, which I'll debunk. A key point, though, is Israel has mocked this crew for having on board minimal aid and say this is all a stunt. Well, yes, it is a stunt. What of it? The point of the exercise was to draw attention to Israel's mass deliberate starvation of its entire people, facilitated by Western governments and aided and abetted by Western media outlets who have systematically failed to tell the Western public the truth about what has been done in their name. That's why it falls to activists like this crew to raise the alarm, to force a conversation, a discussion about one of the great crimes of our age happening right this moment. Now, Israel's Western allies could break this siege at any point. They could have broken the siege at any point. Parking the fact that if Western arms sales to Israel were stopped and Israel was sanctioned, this genocide would immediately end. But you know what? If Britain, Germany, France, and so on sent hundreds of ships carrying aid, what would Israel have done? What would they do? Even Israel is not insane enough to go to war with several European nations. It is insane, don't get me wrong, but not that insane. We should note, however, that this crew could have suffered a worse fate. Israeli security sources briefed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's favourite television station in Israel that they could be eliminated. And in 2010, the Israeli military stormed another aid flotilla and killed 10 activists in the process. The truth is that Israel is starving the Palestinian people, a grave war crime, on purpose, and it's lying about it. I've just written about this for my Guardian column, but Israel has been besieging Gaza for a very long time. The gradual closure and suffocation of Gaza began as long ago as 1991. In 2006, Israel imposed what became the longest blockade on earth of our age, with an advisor to the then Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert declaring the idea is to put the Palestinians on a diet, but not to make them die of hunger. 6 years later, the Israeli newspaper Haaretz published a leaked official document in which officials had calculated the minimum number of calories for a human not to starve, the idea being to make the Palestinian population suffer, but not to all die and thus incur global outrage. A year before the 7th of October, which is obviously, not when this all began, as Israel has sought to pretend, the World Food Programme warned of a dire humanitarian situation in Gaza, noting around half of its trapped people were severely food insecure. In the last 20 months, Israel imposed a deliberately lethal siege, which the West could have ended at any time. There was the constant broadcasting of genocidal intent, of the intent to starve its people. I mean, the Israeli General Ghassan Alian, who had headed the wing of the Israeli military charged supposedly with humanitarian affairs, he declared on the 10th of October that the citizens of Gaza had collective guilt and that human beasts are dealt with accordingly. Israel has imposed a total blockade in Gaza. No electricity, no water, just damage. You wanted hell, you will get hell. That was in a tweet, that video, which was addressed to Hamas and the residents of Gaza. So there's no, that was just one statement which did not even try to hide the explicit, unapologetic commitment to perpetrating this grave war crime against the civilian population. Barely got any coverage in the Western media. As those statements barely did and continue to not do. Because the Western media has lied by omission. It's spread Israeli lies full stop, but it has lied by omission on a grand scale. Lying by omission is lying. And it has deceived the Western public as to what a Western ally has been doing, facilitated by Western governments. The media then treated the subsequent hunger and famine as if it was like some natural disaster. That's why it falls to these activists to educate people. Well over a year ago, the then British Foreign Secretary David Cameron wrote a letter explaining ways in which Israel was deliberately blocking aid, such as excessively screening requirements, arbitrary denials of aid, not opening more land routes, not opening land routes for long enough, leaving British aid languishing at the border for weeks. The British government didn't take any action. Last April, 2 US government departments concluded Israel was deliberately blocking humanitarian aid from getting to Gaza. That legally required the US to cease providing weapons. They didn't do that. They broke their own laws. Again, none of that got barely any coverage in the Western media. What Israel has done in the last 20 months, as per the 1948 Genocide Convention, has been deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. It's killed over 450 aid workers, obviously crucial in providing aid, systematically killed security officers who were charged with protecting the aid, destroyed infrastructure needed to carry aid, blocked fuel and water needed to cook food, destroyed almost all agricultural land, destroyed almost all cropland, destroyed almost all plant life, killed almost all of Gaza's cattle and poultry, virtually ended milk production, criminalized UNRWA, the main humanitarian agency. It has cooperated with criminal gangs linked to ISIS, as Israeli politicians themselves are saying, who it has deliberately allowed to steal aid, the little aid getting in. It imposed a total blockade on Gaza on the 2nd of March. It then set up a shadowy front called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, Orwellian, which the finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, said would allow the entry of the minimum necessary so the world does not stop us and accuse us of war crimes. If you're wondering what stop us means, Smotrich openly declares Israel will remove all Palestinians from Gaza. The foundation offers way too little and mostly unusable aid. And it set up aid points in the south to force people in the north to flee there because it's trying to force them into the south so they'll be put in concentration camps where they'll either be forced to choose between death or fleeing Gaza. It then repeatedly massacred those Palestinians and in the process, because obviously that then deters Palestinians from getting aid, but what it did is replace humanitarian structures which work, which would work if they were allowed to work by Israel, with what Tory MP Kit Malthouse called a shooting gallery and an abattoir. All of this could have been ended by Western states at any moment. They chose not to. And that's what these courageous activists did to try and raise attention of that fact. To raise attention, to educate the world about a grievous crime which has been committed. They showed solidarity with a desperate people who are suffering a heinous crime. And they're heroes for that. And their courage should always be applauded and remembered, just as those responsible for this heinous crime will be condemned, not just by history, but in time, the dog. Please like and subscribe, leave your thoughts in your comments, help us take on the pro-genocide media at patreon.com/OwenJones84. Share the video, listen on the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, Owen Jones Podcast. I'll speak to you soon.